Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the regular July meeting of the Clay Township Board. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Mary?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mary. First order of business is approval of minutes from our July 1st, 2014 board meeting. May I have a motion?
I so move that they be approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I don't have any.
Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Is there anybody from the public who would like to speak tonight? No public comments. Doug, are there any action items?
None during tonight.
We have a couple of information items. Number one is a discussion of the fire construction project, an update. Doug?
What I want to let you know that I've chosen a architect, and it's AXIS, Axis, out of Indianapolis. And they're here tonight. Would any of you like to get up and say a few words or anything? Short, just short and sweet, okay?
Hi, my name's Kevin Cooper. I'm a founding partner with Axis. We're a 18-person firm in Indianapolis, and we've designed, completed over 10 fire stations throughout the state of Indiana. We look forward to this project, but we've been in business since 1995. Myself and my partner, Drew White, were founding partners. We're an 18-person firm, solely architecture, so all the engineering consulting are teaming members with us here tonight, structural site, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, so that's kind of my short spiel. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask.
Just out of curiosity,
Yeah.
where are you guys located?
We're at 618 East Market in Indianapolis, so we're between East and
Know exactly
College.
where you are.
Yeah, on the north
Yep,
side. so,
absolutely.
yeah. Bought an old Sunbeam Bread building a couple of years ago, so,
Great.
yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much.
They've built several fire stations with Indianapolis, Shelbyville, West Lafayette, so they definitely know the business. And I think we've got a great team from everything I've learned from all of you, and I appreciate that. So once our attorney gets back, he's going to draw up the contract for me to sign, and then we'll move along. They've already done some preliminary stuff for us, and I think Matt has given you guys a copy of some of the preliminary stuff, and I don't think we need to go into the detail of it by any means tonight. But once the contract will be signed, when he gets back next week, actually I'll be back at the end of this week. So we'll get the contract done, and we'll get to moving on this project, okay? Thank you for coming up. I appreciate it. And I'm sure you don't want to hear about parks, but you're welcome to stay.
You guys can leave if you want, or you can hang in. It's up to you, but thank you for being here. Okay, next information item. We have the Parks Department here to talk about Parks Capital Projects, and Michael Klitzing. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, members of the board. What I wanted to do tonight is provide a general overview of our capital improvement plan, especially how it pertains to the funding that we receive from the township through the COIT attributable to the Central Park bond. I'll touch upon some other components. Mark is going to serve as my able assistance in advancing the PowerPoint. So anyway, we'll go ahead and get started. Yep. We didn't practice this up front. So what I wanted to talk about first was how we approach, and the handouts I gave you don't pertain to the PowerPoint. They're supplemental information I've provided for you. But I wanted to first talk about how we prioritize capital improvement projects within the Parks Department. First of all the projects need to align with the master plan that was approved by the Park Board. Every 5 years, the Park Board, under state requirements and federal requirements, is required to approve a 5-year comprehensive master plan. Our current master plan runs through the end of this year, and we're in the process of finalizing the new 5-year comprehensive master plan that will go through 2019. Our capital improvement plan takes into consideration, one, what's already been approved, and knowing where the other one is going, incorporates some components of the new plan that's coming forward. We also are going to be working with the Township Board and hopefully establishing a meeting with the Park Board officers, Township Board members, and City Council members to make sure that we incorporate your input into the final master plan before it's approved by the Park Board. So first, everything has to align with the master plan. Second of all, one of the components that the Park Board has established for us is an 80% cost recovery mandate for all of our operating expenses. That includes the general fund, extended school enrichment, and the Monon Community Center. Obviously, the Monon Community Center and ESC operate at self-sufficiency above 100% cost recovery, and ESC has since the inception of that program in 2006, 2007, and the Monon Community Center became self-sufficient in 2010. But when you factor in the general fund component, which is completely tax funded, the goal is to be at least 80% for all of our operations. So for all of our capital projects that we do, we strongly look at how is it going to impact our cost recovery mandates. Additionally, we take into consideration that our general fund, the tax budget that we receive from both the township and the city, but based on the funding formulas under the interlocal agreement, is now predominantly almost 97% from the city. We take that into consideration. Since 2009, our general fund budget has only increased 3.6%. So that doesn't give us a lot of opportunity to take on the expense of maintaining new parks and facilities. To do so, we have to be a little creative. Here's looking at the various four major categories within our budget: personnel, supplies, services, and capital. And what you can see between 2009 and the current year budget, there's been slight increases in personnel and in services, and decreases actually in supplies and capital. The capital within the general fund pretty much just covers some computer upgrades, very minimal. We only have $15,000 in the general fund for capital expenditures this year, and that's the projection for next year as well. So you can see the growth has been very sustained within the general fund over the last 5 years. We've been able to do that through a variety of mechanisms. First of all, we've changed our structure by which we compensate our employees. We no longer do automatic cost of living adjustments for our employees. They're all merit-based, so they get annual evaluations, and they only get an increase if it is worthwhile. And that's significantly cut down the increases that we see in personnel. We've also looked at how we staff the department and have outsourced some components that we feel that can be better performed by the private sector. One specific example is mowing. Another one is all of our landscape beds within the parks. All those except for the north campus of Central Park, where our administrative offices and maintenance are now outsourced. And what we found is we were able to do so more economically than we could do it in-house. And we did some pretty extensive surveys and studies to ensure that was the case. We'll move on to the next one. Just as a point of comparison, our budget over the last 5 years has increased less than $100,000, like I said, 3.6%. Just as a point of comparison, the city's has increased by 21.5%. So again, our efforts to make sure that we're keeping our budgets maintained. And of course, the city has different projects going on that we don't, which can partially explain their increases. We'll go on to the next slide. Going back more to project prioritization for our capital improvement plans, part of our comprehensive master plans, and every 5 years we do a comprehensive survey, statistically valid, administered by a professional survey company. And one of the top findings every year is that our residents want us to take care of the assets that we already have. So in our capital improvement plan, the first thing that we do is we make sure that we're allocating resources to maintain the assets that we already have, whether that be the Monon Community Center or our parks. We do first prioritize based on those facilities that are revenue generating. That's important because if we don't maintain facilities like the Monon Community Center in top shape, we're never going to be able to sustain cost recovery in that facility. So that's always our top priority. Number two is capital maintenance of all of our other parks and facilities, so everything from West Park to Flowing Well and everything in between. The third are capital project monies for new projects that are on existing parkland. So again, taking care of the assets we have. If we're going to develop, we're going to develop first on the facilities or the parks land that we already have. And then fourth and our final priority are things that require us to purchase new parkland, and that's outright expenditure of dollars that we have. We are always looking for opportunities for working with developers that maybe we can have land donated, but as far as outright purchase of land, that's our fourth priority. We have basically four primary funding sources, really three primary funding sources for our capital improvements. Three of them are maintained by the clerk treasurer at the city per the interlocal agreement. We have a Parks Capital Fund, which hasn't been funded since 2002, is my recollection. So there's some funds remaining in there that are dedicated for improvements to the Monon Trail, but no new funding has gone in that from either the city or a township for many years. We have a park impact fee fund, so for every new residential dwelling unit that's constructed within Clay Township or the city of Carmel, we receive designated funds from the developer when they apply for their building permit. So those go, and those funds can only be used for designated parks within the zone improvement plan. Pretty much most of our parks are in it, but Central Park, for example, is not. The Monon Greenway is not, and a variety of other ones. But the park impact fee is really designed to accommodate the new residential growth. We can't use it to take care of needs that have accumulated from our existing residents. Those monies are dedicated for new residents to support their added burden on the park system. And those dollars have predominantly been used currently in Founders Park, and over the next several years they'll be redirected towards West Park, since we obviously have a lot of growth on the west side of the township. The gift fund is also a source, and COIT is also a source which you're very familiar with, 1215. Actually, 75% of our capital dollars over the last several years has come from the COIT dollars from the township. Looking specifically at the 1215 fund, the non-reverting park fund that's maintained here at the township, as of the end of June, we had just over $6.5 million in that balance. And a lot of times we receive a lot of questions, especially from elected officials, both here and at the city, as to how we're going to use those dollars. And that's what I really want to focus on next. And to show that we really do have a plan for all the dollars that are in the account. Right now, like I said, $6.5 million as of the end of June. We maintain $2.5 million in reserves, basically our rainy day funds. We don't have our own separate rainy day fund like the township has or the city has. So we have used the COIT fund to help us develop a rainy day fund or effective rainy day fund. $1.5 million is dedicated as a maintenance reserve. And this is for unpredictable or unforeseen capital repairs that we need to do in the park system. Should there be an emergency, a natural disaster. For example, a couple times already this year, we've had to replace some of the major hot water heaters. We have two significant hot water heaters within the Monon Community Center that supply the east and west buildings. Those were starting to fail this summer, and the cost of those was roughly $25,000 for the two of them. We also had a similar failure on the hot water system in the water park that supplies the concessions building as well as the restrooms in that facility, and we had to do a repair with that, which was roughly $13,000. So that maintenance reserve is kept to fund those types of unforeseens. What we do is at the end of every year, we make sure that there's $1.5 million set aside. We may draw it down throughout the course of the year, but at the end of the year, we make sure at the beginning of the year it's made whole again at $1.5 million. The other operating reserve that we keep is $1 million set aside in the event that we do not achieve cost recovery and need subsidies for the Monon Community Center. It is always certainly our goal to make sure that that facility remains self-sufficient, but we do have challenges with it, and again, you never know what might happen as far as natural disasters, multiple summers of inclement weather, which we're working on year number 2 of not so good weather, which is having an impact on us as well. Obviously, we want to make sure that dollars are set aside in the event so that the city or the township doesn't have to find new dollars should there be significant issues. I want to talk about that a little bit more as to why it's important. These are the 12-month trailing financials for the Monon Community Center. We do provide those to you in the board packets that we distribute to you. These are always looking at 12 months of data for each month. The blue line represents the revenues that we make. The red line represents the expenses. The green line down at the bottom is our net income or net loss in the case. This is dating back from June of 2008 when we were roughly $1 million needing a subsidy to today where we're roughly about $250,000 to $500,000 in the positive. But what you can see if you go to the next one, this is what it looks like over the last 12 months. You can see that it's really flatlined over the course of the last year. Actually, our revenues have ticked down a little bit. That's reflective predominantly of two factors. One, the summers that we've had, which have not been 2012 was a phenomenal year for water parks, not so much for anyone trying to maintain their flowers and gardens and stuff. 2013 and 2014 have been more favorable for doing things outside unless you want to swim. So you're seeing the bump down from that. Additionally, what we're starting to find is that we are reaching capacity at the Monon Community Center. Now, that doesn't mean you can't come to the MCC at various times and see that there's fitness machines that aren't being used or different areas of the building that are unoccupied. But what it does mean is that our membership has really started to plateau. And one of the predictions that we made actually when we were opening the facility is that we would continue to see growth, and then we'd sort of see it peak and go down a little bit and then plateau. And we're starting to see that occur. If you would go to the next slide. This shows our MCC escape passes. These are our general passes that we have, the ones that provide access, monthly and annual passes, to the fitness, aquatics, any components of the Monon Community Center for which you need to have a pass. And what you can see is we have, and these are 12-month trailing averages, so I'm always looking at an average of 12 months of data. You'll see spikes and valleys typical to fitness and aquatic facilities. We see growth, significant growth for New Year's resolution times, starting usually in November and December that trails off in February and March. And we'll also see bumps in advance for the aquatic season starting in May and June and a little bit in July, and then again it trails off, and you just kind of see that roller coaster effect, but this gives you a 12-month average. And what you can see is we saw tremendous growth really through about the end of 2011. The growth has still continued to grow, but we're really starting to see it flatline. If you go to the next slide, that's over the last 12 months, and that looks like Illinois, where I grew up in East Central Illinois, and has no peaks or valleys by any means. And to me, that's reflecting that we are starting to see capacity during our peak use times. What that means to ensure that we maintain the Monon Community Center at self-sufficiency is that we have to look at several different things. One, we're always looking to make sure we're containing our expenses, and we continue to do so. Number two is looking at opportunities to grow the revenue, and that's through two primary different mechanisms. One is looking at what's the primary driving sources of revenue. And for our facility, it's two things. Aquatics, when we have really good summers, really hot summers, we see huge spikes in revenue. What we want to do is make sure we're in a position that we don't have to rely on a really hot summer to make sure that we make cost recovery. The second component that drives revenue in the facility, and this is a year-round driver, is the fitness. People buy passes for those two primary reasons. So what that means is where we're really seeing the capacity is in the fitness component of the facility. Evenings, weekdays, especially Monday through Thursday, really starting around 3, 4 o'clock and going till about 7, 8 o'clock. Those facilities, the fitness facility is very busy. Again, doesn't mean that there aren't some days that you can go on and get right on the piece of equipment that you want, but what we're finding is really for every new person that we're getting a new membership, we're seeing someone leave. They're feeling that it's getting too busy. That's sort of a general sign and a trend that you'll see in the business. So that's one of the things. And what that means is we have to look at how can we grow the fitness components and looking at space within the facility to do so. And I'll get back with that in a little bit. And the other thing is looking at periodic price adjustments. One of the things that we haven't done very well at the Monon Community Center, some hesitation of the board, is always to raise prices, the park board. And we certainly respect that, and we want to maintain as economical pricing for passes. But for example, for extended school enrichment, every 2 years we have a very modest rate increase to make sure we're keeping up with the cost of inflation, personnel expenses that grow, all other expenses that grow. And we haven't been able to do that with the Monon Community Center. So our recommendation to the park board is going to be that about every 2 years we look at a very modest rate increase to make sure that we're keeping up with expenses, as well as looking at opportunities to grow fitness. Jumping back to the 1215 fund, which is here at the Township. Again, I talked about the $6.5 million that we have, the $2.5 million in operating reserves and maintenance reserves that we have. On the books today, we have roughly $1.6 million in existing contracts and purchase orders. That's actual projects that are committed to, and we either have a signed contract or a signed purchase order. That leaves a balance of roughly $2.4 million for other projects, future projects. Going on to the next slide. Of the $1.6 million of existing projects, they really are in several different categories. The dog park, which the park board has executed the contract, and if you've gone down 116th Street, you've seen that construction occurring. That's roughly $1.2 million remaining on that contract. We've already made a few payments, so that's the current balance as of the end of June. The Central Park Playground design, we're finishing up the construction documents for the new playground in Central Park, which I know many of you are looking forward to. That contract for the design component of it has a little over $65,000, and we anticipate going out to bid on that still this year. The Central Park overflow parking, we did add additional parking last year and made some improvements on the roadway. That is still being worked on. That's where the grates are before the bridge, where we're still tweaking that a little bit. There's actually about $56,000 remaining on that contract, which we'll ultimately have to pay out. We are in the process of getting ready to kick off an ADA transition plan. That's required under federal law, and it's a component of the master plan, so that'll be started this year and finished hopefully either this year or by the middle of next year. And then on capital maintenance projects, and this can be everything from some repairs we did to the bridge on the Hagenberg Greenway. It can be various projects that we've done at the Monon Community Center, some filters, the hot water heaters, all those type of components. We have roughly $253,000 in existing capital maintenance projects that we're in the process of completing and finishing up. For the rest of 2014 and 2015, the projects we have is the playground in Central Park Phase 1, which is $3.3 million. That's an estimate. We'll have firm numbers when we go out to bid later this year, hopefully this fall. And that's going to include the actual full playground. It's going to include several shelter buildings, so there'll be rental shelter opportunities on the west side of the park. As well, and the parking and restroom facilities. A future phase, which will be before 2019, will be adding a splash pad or spray park to the playground. So that will be an additional component beyond 2015. Interior finishes in the Monon Community Center. We're getting ready to kick off finishing the carpeting and interior finishes in the east building. After 7 years of use, especially the last several years where we're using it for a lot more recreation programming, it's had just regular wear and tear, and the carpeting and some of the wallpaper is at the end of its useful life. So we're going to be refinishing that this year, and then next year we'll be working on the hallway in front of the gymnasium that has a beautiful patina, I'm joking there, on the floor that will be replaced, as well as the flooring in the indoor aquatic locker rooms will be upgraded as well. We're also going to be starting a rotation of replacing the cardio equipment at the Monon Community Center. Again, those have usually about a 5 to 7 year useful life, and we're at that 7 years now. So we're going to be replacing all the cardio equipment over the next 2 years, and then additional equipment beyond that. The gym dividers, the curtains that come down, those are also starting to fail, again, approaching the end of the regular useful life, regular things that we'll have to repair every 5 to 10 years. So $50,000 for that, as well as replacement and repairs to the basketball goals in the gym. And then beyond that, we have a variety of other planned capital maintenance, roughly $5.7 million. And if you go to the next page, Mark, that's a summary of, I don't know where that random 2.7 came from. But yeah, the handout that I gave you gave a summary of the different projects that we have going on there. And go to the next slide. So talking about, we have, after we take out the existing projects and the $2.5 million in reserves, that leaves in round numbers roughly $2.4 million left for these future projects, 2014 and 2015. We'll receive through the rest of this year roughly $1.3 million. Next year, I've estimated at 2.4. It hopefully will be a little bit higher, but I always prefer to go conservative in my revenue projections. We've been averaging about 2.5 million for that. So that gives us roughly $6.1 million over the course of the remainder of this year and next year for our projects. We have roughly $5.7 million available, leaving a little under $400,000 for uncommitted, but additional projects that we have planned. What I provided to you, and I'm not going to go in detail beyond 2015, but I actually provided you the capital improvement plan that has the detailed report in it as far as how we approach capital improvement funding and planning, as well as the projects that are planned. So light reading for you at your leisure. The last component that I have is really a request that we do need to make of the Township Board regarding 1215. At the end of last year, working with Doug, what we found out from DLGF and the State Board of Accounts is that in the past we have always done encumbrances for previous year budgets so that it rolls over year to year. DLGF and the State Board of Accounts has informed us that that's not the best practice, and what they've requested that we do is actually each year have the Township Board, for the dollars that we haven't committed that aren't under contract or don't have an existing purchase order, to be reappropriated. Working with Doug, what we did is we allowed all of the encumbrances prior to 2014 to expire, and with the intent that I would come before this body to make a formal request as far as how we need to make adjustments so that we can keep the projects rolling this year and beyond. We originally budgeted for this year $2.5 million, which represents roughly the dollars in COIT that we're receiving this year. So to take care of the rest of the balance, these are the proposed revisions that we would like to ask of the Township Board. Moving the Central Park line up to $4.7 million, adding $25,000 to a new ADA transition plan line, and $1.6 million for park capital maintenance, bringing the overall budget to $6.3 million. And you can see the changes there, and I'd be happy to address any questions you have on that. Next slide. And this is just a reminder that I live with daily. As I informed you, 75% of our capital funding comes from the township as a result of the COLA that's attributable to the Central Park bond. That bond retires in 2020 or 2026, January 1st of that year. So that means we have, at best, 11 years of COIT from that Central Park bond that's dedicated for park capital projects. What that means is we, as a department, the Park Board, and our elected officials need to be prepared for when that significant funding source for parks goes away. One of the things that we as a department are continuing to do is making sure that we do achieve cost recovery for the Monarch Community Center. And the dollars that we've made, the net income that we've made, are being dedicated for those capital repairs that are going to be needed when the COIT goes away. And it's really important to leave that money in the Fund 109, the Monarch Community Center Fund, so that when COIT is gone, we have those dollars available so we don't have to rely on tax dollars from the township or the city down the road. And I say 11 years of COIT remaining. That's assuming that nothing changes. The state doesn't change the rules, that that the township board decides to do something different, or the interlocal goes away, or there's so many different factors that could happen between now and 2026. So that's assuming everything stays the same and the commitments remain the same as they are today. So that's why it's important for us to remember that down the road. With that, I'd be happy to address any questions you may have.
You said, is this on?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That you had another idea for expanding, or you didn't?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And I apologize for not going back to that. One of the things that we know for the Monon Community Center is the footprint of the building is basically the footprint of the building based on the wetlands that are around there, the configuration, the Monon Greenway, the pipeline that goes through that property. We don't have the ability to expand the footprint of the building. So what that means we need to do is look at how we can reuse existing spaces within the building and to generate more revenue. We've done that in the past. For example, the cafe that used to be on the west building, we transitioned into a multi-purpose room, which is used for fitness and a variety of other, group fitness and a variety of other types of programs. What we're looking at doing, and we're in the process of working with Williams Architects, the original architects for that facility, to look to see how we can expand fitness within the footprint. Some ideas that we are currently exploring, and they're still in the very preliminary stages, is looking at the bridge, for example. A large space, a beautiful space to be in, but it doesn't contribute one dime to the cost recovery of that facility. So how can we repurpose that space for something that generates revenue? So we're looking at, can that become an additional cardio room so we can expand the offerings of cardio equipment in that space? The preliminary ideas is yes, we probably can. It's going to require reconfiguration of the control points, and that's what Williams is starting to look at. There also may be opportunities to expand fitness in some of the areas in the lower level of the west building, for example, kind of behind the staircase or where the existing desk is for the west building. There's some space that's currently has couches and stuff, but isn't as heavily used as it could be because it's currently behind the control point. What we're looking at is how can we create little pods. If you go to student recreation centers now, which is where some of our future customers are coming from, they have these pod concepts. They'll have little areas in different parts of the building that are dedicated to fitness. And we're looking at how can we do that within our facility. That may involve moving control points. It probably will involve moving control points. It may actually change how the track functions because it may put the track behind the control point instead of in front of a control point now. And if that happens, we're looking at, well, how can we make sure that the users of that free amenity currently would still be able to use it at no or minimal cost? So we're working, for example, we've been approached by Silver Sneakers, which is a program that works and provides really free use of fitness facilities through their insurance program. So the insurance pays us directly through this program. So we're looking at joining that program so that our seniors can have free use not only of the track maybe down the road, but also of all of our amenities within there. And different types of ideas like that. We're also doing some pretty extensive surveying right now to better identify who is using the track. We're doing periodic intercept surveys to find out, where they're coming from. Do they have a pass already and just bypassing it because that's all they're doing for today? Where are they coming from? Are they Clay Township residents, or are they coming from our neighboring communities? So that way we have the facts so that when we can make an informed decision, the park board, the department, and our fiscal bodies, both the township board and city council, before we make dramatic changes to the building.
What are you finding in terms of statistics between people from Carmel using it and other areas coming in?
I haven't seen those numbers yet. They started it at the beginning of summer, and I haven't asked to review those. I wanted to go through the entire summer surveying period. That way I'm looking at a larger database of intercepts. So I can't report that to you right now. Now, we do know that for a facility and for our program, we do get a significant amount of non-residents using our facility. For cost recovery, that's a good thing because that allows, before, when we had, for example, for our passes, we used to charge 50% more for non-residents. And when we dropped it so that the passes are all the same, we saw a huge boost in the number of memberships that we had. What we used to see is, because of where we're located, we were basically a half circle. You saw kind of within a 15, 20-minute boundary, a lot of members, but once you hit 96th Street, the circle just dropped off. We've sort of added in and infilled that circle, which has helped us achieve cost recovery. Now, there's obviously the argument that those individuals didn't pay to help construct the facility, but they are contributing to the facility to ensure that we don't have to use tax dollars to operate it. So that's the perspective that we've used, and sort of the traditional business perspective that, Walmart doesn't ask where, charge you more if you're outside of the town that they're in. Likewise, we've followed the same pricing structure. But we do know that probably 20 to 30% of our passes are non-residents. Now, some of those are people that work in Carmel and then commute elsewhere. And our programming, special events, some of those we can actually see more non-residents than residents. But again, we view that as a positive because we're bringing people into the community, and then a good portion of those individuals are then using the businesses within Carmel and Clay Township, contributing to our economy.
I do have one more. I have a suggestion. I've been sort of ruminating on this, but as you drive around, you keep seeing retirement communities that are being built. Have you ever thought about putting a program together where the parks might go out and promote exercise, run the programs for the facilities as part of an income producing?
That's an excellent suggestion, and something we haven't looked into, but I just recently went on a accreditation visit. As you know, our park system is in line to become an accredited park system this October. But I'm also a certified visitor, so I can go to other communities. And I just went to Mooresville, North Carolina, and that's actually a program that they're offering, which intrigued me. So we're going to do some research and check into that. And Mark?
We are actually doing a program off-site with University High School now.
Oh.
That program's starting up, so it's very similar to what you said, but we hadn't looked at the retirement communities. And with the Founders Pavilion being completed, we're going to be programming that. So we're going to be taking more programs out to the community. And one of the major funding things that Michael didn't mention, Mary, this weekend, we're having the Pro-Am Flow Rider contest. The first one in the Midwest in many years, the only one in the Midwest. So all the pros are going to be out there. The amateurs will be out there trying to get up to a pro level. And tonight, after this meeting, there's a number of them over there working with our adaptive classes, helping them learn better how to do it. So tonight, you could go over and practice, register for Saturday, and maybe win prize money and contribute that back to a park fund. It'd be great, Mary.
Thank you. I appreciate the invitation, but you will not see me there.
And I have
Be
no
doing
control over Mark. You all know that. So.
Matt,
Nothing.
any questions? Michael, outstanding presentation.
Thank you
Thank you very much.
Really
Thanks very much.
nice.
Always appreciate it. And if you have any additional questions with the materials that I provided, please feel free to contact me. As a note, if you contact me after Friday, I'll be in Canada for a week, so I will not be getting back with you. But I will get back with you as promptly as possible, anytime this week or the following week. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Hey, Michael, I had just one question on that. Are you wanting to do this additional appropriation here shortly? Do you want me to start moving on it?
We need that to occur sometime this year, so
Okay,
definitely before the end of the year, the sooner the better. What this should allow us to do, I've structured it in a way that at the end of the year, I don't anticipate needing to do any line transfers, so it should provide more than enough money, and then at the beginning of next year, any dollars that we didn't use that aren't under contracts, we'll have to come back and do an additional appropriation. So,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
That's it for information items. Any financial questions from the board?
I don't have any. No.
Nor do I. Board comments. Mary, you have anything you want to add?
Well, yes, I'd like to thank you very much for such a wonderful presentation. I like the way the parks are growing. You know that I love the idea of all the children being out, being able to use it as a park. And there's so many wonderful things going on in there, and I hope you will consider that about the senior citizens, because, well, wouldn't that be cool to have that under the park system too? I also want to thank you, Doug. Please thank them for the minutes. I think that must have been yeoman's service this month. That's the longest
That's-
pack of minutes
yeah.
I've ever seen.
Yeah, well, when you had mentioned something about you wanted more information from that,
Right.
from some of these meetings, we decided, you think,
Have fun with them this week time too.
thank Debbie for that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, very much.
Okay.
And we thank you for coming tonight and visiting with us, Drew. It's good to see you. Thank you.
I wish every department in the country was run by the two of you. And I'll echo what the city council said at our joinder meetings last year, about in August. You crush every other department, hands down, with efficiency and the way you run things. I appreciate it.
Ditto, and I would like to thank Mark Westermeyer, our Parks Director, for being here. The folks from Axis, thank you for hanging in. Wasn't too long of a ordeal this evening. Any announcements, Doug?
We're not going to have a meeting in August. Everything from the budget standpoint is being moved back. And I thought they wanted us to do them sooner than later, and now they've moved everything back. So I've got a sheet here for you on a breakdown of our budget schedule.
Do you have ours on
The
there?
only thing you got to be concerned with is September 23rd, and that's on here. I'll give these to you afterwards. Is our public hearing for our 2015 proposed budget, and on October the 7th is the budget adoption. Okay, and August 26th, I'd originally had a meeting, but we don't need to have it now that we've had these last few. However, I received an email from Dinah Cordray, and it's not from the mayor, but it's supposedly August 20th or the 27th is supposed to be the joinders. Mark, do you guys know? Have they said anything to you? So nothing, it's all up in the air. So the sheets I'm giving you, just don't worry about August unless I get back with you. But we have September 23rd is public hearing for our budget, and October the 7th is our budget adoption. And I'll give you, like I say, I'll give you the sheets.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
So then may I have a motion for adjournment?
I so move.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.